Okay, it's almost done. We are at chapter 42, Terror at Bottle Creek by Watt Key. You need to get the author's name right. You need to really make a point, too, that you know who the characters are in this book. That's kind of important. If you don't know who you're talking about and you can't name them, then you haven't read closely enough. So you might want to go back and make a character listing so that you're ready with those when school starts again in August. Chapter 42. Curly radioed that 2 ambulances were waiting for us at a bridge 3 miles south of the landing. Here the highway crossed a wide drainage basin far enough off the river that we'd avoid working against the turbulent current of the Tensas. We had the girls on the floor of the John with a towel around them. Liza's leg was gruesomely swollen, and she was slipping in and out of consciousness. When we arrived at the bridge, we found the flood water almost over the highway. The ambulance lights strobed red and white through the drizzling rain like they were floating in the middle of it. We pulled up against the roadway level with the medics, and they stepped over the guardrail and loaded the girls onto 2 stretchers. One of the medics asked me what type of snake it was. I told them, and they gave Liza a shot of something. Go with them, Dad told me. Get your leg taken care of. I didn't answer him. Suddenly, I couldn't make sense of anything. I couldn't believe there was nothing left for me to do. But my mind already realized it, and I collapsed in the boat. Everything went black. I kept my eyes closed for what seemed like hours, listening to the steady beeping of hospital equipment. When I opened them, I found myself alone within a partition facing a curtain. I heard people talking softly around me. I saw feet pass the base of the curtain. I closed my eyes again. Sometime later, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I saw Dad stand over me. Hey, Dad. Hey, Bud, he said. Hey, how you feeling? I cocked my eyes around the room and didn't answer him. You've been out for nearly 24 hours. It's Wednesday morning. My head was groggy, and it took a moment to make sense of where I was and how I'd gotten here. Then the memory of everything that happened flooded over me. I looked at him. Are they okay? They're fine, he said. What about Liza's leg? She's going to be fine. Will she lose it? They don't think so. I struggled to recall everything I should be concerned about. The girls were safe. Dad was standing over me. I slowly realized it was really over. It was all over. For the first time in a week, I felt free in my head. They've still got some heat blankets on you, Dad said. Doc told me all of you were lucky you didn't die from hypothermia. I smirked. Dad knew what I was thinking. Well, they stitched up the gash on your leg and the cut on your hand. You should be as good as new in no time. The curtain parted and Mrs. Stovall walked in. She moved to the other side of my bed and put her hand on my cheek. Thank you, Court, she said. I was glad they were with me, but I didn't want to talk to them or anybody else. I just wanted to lie there and not think about it at all and sleep again. Chapter 43. Just after noon on Wednesday, Dad brought me a change of clothes and set them next to my bed. You about ready? He asked. Doctor says you're good to go. Yeah, I said, I'm ready. Shortly after that, a nurse arrived and detached the IV from my arm and made notes on a chart. After she left, Dad helped me up and I got dressed. Will they let me see Liza? Probably not a good time, he said. We better stay out of their way. The day after a hurricane is always strange for me. The sky is deep blue and the air is crisp and dry. It seems the storm sucked away everything, leaving a bluebird day to proudly showcase the destruction left in its wake. Dad drove us slowly up the highway, stopping for utility trucks and easing past piles of storm debris stacked along the ditch. We had to take a back road and wind around to the north end of the county and come south again. I've been wondering, I said. How'd you know we were in trouble? I had a feeling something was wrong, he said. I just knew it. I left the truck here and walked in. I saw the garage door open and the generator run out. Nobody inside the house. Then I found the boat trailer smashed up at the bottom of the ramp and the houseboat gone. Francie got her wrist caught in Catfish's lease. He drug her out into the storm and she got onto the houseboat before it broke loose. That started it all. We got on the river and caught up with it, but everything got worse after that. Glad you got off. I looked at him. I hated you, Dad. I hated you for leaving me like that. He put his hand on my shoulder, and I felt myself starting to tear up at the memory of it all. It won't happen again, he said. You're the most important thing in the world to me. I sniffed and wiped my nose with the back of my hand. You got every right to be mad. I nodded. I'm okay now, I said. Let's not talk about it anymore. Dad pulled his hand away and nodded considerately. After nearly an hour, Dad got us back to Nelson Morton's cow pasture, where he had parked near the fence. Think you can walk to the house with those stitches? I can make it, I said. We left the truck and crossed the pasture from there, and from there we walked an old logging road to the back side of the Stovall's property. When we arrived at the landing, I saw the river had receded somewhat. The bait shop and the boat slip docks were gone. Lumber and storm debris were tangled in the trees and scattered through the clearing. The launch ramp was coated with mud and trash. The sight of it was overwhelming. Looks bad, I said. We've got some work ahead of us, that's for sure. Let's rest a minute. Go ahead and sit down, he said. No rush. We sat at the top of the hill. Linda told me we could stay at her place until we get things figured out, Dad said. We have insurance or anything like that? Well, not exactly anything like that. What are you going to do? Paul Davis has an RV he said we could use for a while. I can bring that over tomorrow once we get the road cleared. All right, I said, then what? What do you think about building a house? A house? Where? Around here somewhere. Linda said she'd sell us a half acre or so. How you going to pay for that? I don't have to do it all at once. How you going to pay for a house? There's going to be plenty of cleanup work for a few months. A man with a chainsaw can get after it and do pretty good. Good enough to get started anyway. I stared out over the dirty river. You're not doing it for Mom, are you? Dad picked up a twig and snapped it and let the pieces fall between his legs. I probably should have done it a long time ago, he said. I don't think it would have helped. He grinned. Probably not. The more I thought about it, Dad's idea about the house didn't sound so far-fetched. We'd build camp houses before. We knew how to frame and wire and plumb. We can do it, Dad. He put his arm around me. Man, he said, a couple of nights ago when I was up the road at your mother's house, I was sitting there watching the storm worrying about you kids, and it was just all empty there, you know. I mean, your mother was there and Linda, but it was just empty. I drew my knees up and studied the tips of my shoes. Your mom and I used to be happy together, Dad continued. Believe it or not, but we just won't ever be that way again. I think I finally got my head around that. Sometimes things just don't work out no matter how much you want them to. Yeah, I said. You going to be any good around here with a bum leg and one hand? I'll be fine, I said. Let's get this place cleaned up. Chapter 44. Dad got Mr. Stovall's old chainsaw working and spent until late afternoon clearing the road into the landing. I had a slight limp and my leg was sore, but I was able to help. I put a glove on my hand with the stitches and could pick up some of the lighter trash. We used the Stovall's truck until we were able to drive ours down. Then we got both of them working, hauling debris from the yard and tossing it in a burn pile near the river. Much of the lumber we found was still good, and we made a separate stack of boards to clean of nails and salvage. We'd use them to help rebuild the bait shop and the dock. It was going to be days before the utility lines were restored. Just before dark, I refueled the generator while Dad wired it directly into the house's electrical box. When he was done, I started it, and we had power throughout the entire house. Once we cleaned up and got settled, Dad called the hospital to check on the girls. Mrs. Stovall told them she'd be bringing Francie home in the morning. They were going to keep Liza for a few more days. After Dad hung up the phone, he went over to the sofa and fell onto it heavily. I'm beat, son, he said. We can get the boards off the windows in the morning, I said. Where are we sleeping tonight? I'm sleeping right here. I'll take the floor then. You hungry? Maybe. I got a few cans of soup I brought up from the houseboat. I'll get 'em out of the garage. I walked through the pantry and opened the garage door. Catfish strolled past me. his toenails clicking across the linoleum like he'd only been gone a few minutes. He was wet and muddy, and briars were tangled and matted into his hair. "Catfish!" I shouted. He stopped and turned. I knelt, and he came to me, and I hugged him to my chest. I saw Dad's feet approach. "I'll be danged," he said. I rubbed my dog's neck, and he whined and cowered into me like he was suddenly remembered all he'd been through. "Looks like he's wore out," Dad said. "Come on, boy," I said. "Let's get you cleaned up and get you something to eat." I gave Catfish a bath outside the garage, rubbing him down and feeling for any major injuries. Aside from some welts on his body and scratches on his face, he seemed okay. "You're sleeping with me tonight," I told him as I got some food ready for him. He trembled with excitement. Nobody's leaving anybody again. Dad rose early the next morning to go get the RV. I was taking the plywood off the house windows when Mrs. Stovall's car pulled up. Francie got out carrying her Elmo doll. She had a few bandages on her face and arms, but otherwise she looked healthy. I lowered my hammer and went to meet them. "How you feeling, Francie?" She looked around. "This place looks terrible, Court. You need to clean this up," she bossed. Mrs. Stovall and I both laughed. "I didn't know you'd be home so soon," I said. "I tried to get it ready for you." "Where's Catfish?" Francie asked matter-of-factly. I looked at Mrs. Stovall. "You told her?" She shrugged her shoulders and widened her eyes with a look that said, "Not me." "He's around here somewhere," I said to Francie. "He's been looking for you." "I know," she said flatly. Mrs. Stovall approached me and rolled her eyes. "I think she's feeling just fine, Court. A little full of herself after all the attention she got at the hospital." "Good," I said. "How about Liza?" "She's better. I'll go sit with her tonight. They think I can bring her home on Sunday. Maybe we'll be off generator power by then. Just let me know if you need me to crank it. Dad should be back with an RV soon." "Okay," she said. "You two feel free to use the house for anything you need." "You go by Mom's place?" "No, but she was fine when I left." "Dad knows she's not coming back." Mrs. Stovall nodded. "She's probably happier now. I guess I ought to be by there in a couple of days, see if she needs any help." "That would be nice," she said. I looked at my shoes. "Think she'll move on eventually?" "I don't know, Court, but sometimes people get along better than ever with a little distance." "I'm counting on it." "This isn't the life for everybody," she added. "I know, but Dad says it's in our blood." "Your dad can be a little extreme." "Yes, ma'am, I know." And I'm going to stop this one here and pick up new with chapter 45.